this whole thing. My guests, Sandy Byrne and Sean Bowen, are going to explain our topic, hacking alert fatigue, but one line at a time, kind of like they're in an improv troupe. And they're going to try to do it in 60 seconds. This is my clock behind me. I'll move the microphone so you can actually see it. So, gentlemen, are you ready? Sandy, you are going to start first. One line at a time, back and forth. Listen to what the other person's saying, and hopefully in a minute you will have a cogent explanation to the board of what is alert fatigue. Ready? Gentlemen, let's do this. Go.
We have a big problem. We've got so many alerts that people are ignoring them.
We need more people to address all of the alerts that we're having, or we could look at another solution.
And the other problem is, of course, we keep getting the same alerts over and over again, meaning we can't get to the backlog of alerts that we have.
And we need a lot of new tooling to solve all of this problem because there's so much noise in our alerts.
If we invest in something that organizes all of our workloads so we know which ones are the priorities, I think we have a solution.
And that solution will be mapped to the NIST framework and any other high-level words that you don't understand because you're all board members.
And those words will make sure that we drive the right alerts to the right teams to fix them in the right sets of time.
And they will be mapped to the business impacts so that you understand the financial and reputational risk that we are protecting.
On the money. Awesome job, guys. That was great. Let's begin this show.
I had to throw a curveball for you.
Welcome, everybody. The CISO Series video chat is ready to begin.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the CISO Series video chat. My name is David Spark. If you've been here before, you know the game. You know how this whole thing works. But for those of you who are new, I don't want to go through some of this stuff with you. So hang tight. Let's talk about this. Today's topic is hacking alert fatigue and our discussion of managing what seems to be kind of unmanageable. I want to thank our guests, Sean Bowen, CISO for World Fuel Services, and Sandy Byrne, co-founder and CTO of Sunry Security. In fact, Sunry Security is our sponsor today. Thank you so much for sponsoring this very video chat. All right. If you've never participated before, there are six ways you can participate in the chat. One is just get involved in the chat room. I want to see this thing light up as it is already. Now you can submit bad ideas. Now the topic is hacking alert fatigue. So what is your worst idea on dealing with alert fatigue? I feel that you can come up with some clever suggestions here. Submit your best strategies too. You can do that. So for bad idea, you just type bad idea, whatever, and then best strategy. Or actually, let me clarify that. I should have written that as submit your unique strategies. We want to hear unique because we're trying to hack this concept, not the thing you've heard all the time. At any time, you can try to come on video at any time by just typing bring me on if you got a comment or question. Ask a question. You see there's an ask a question little button in the lower right-hand corner, and you can also vote on your favorite questions as well. All right. Today's schedule, explain it to the board. We just did that in the first 2 minutes. Your bad ideas and questions from the audience. We will put up a poll at 20 minutes past the hour for your favorite bad idea. Also at that time, we want to know what is your unique tip. At 30 minutes past the hour, we'll be playing Department of Yes, where we'll try to actually implement your incredibly horrible ideas. We'll vote for your favorite questions, and we'll also put up the unique tip poll. We want you to vote on those as well. The best bad idea contenders will come on camera and face off and defend why their bad idea is truly the worst bad idea. And then last questions, final advice, and then we'll have our meetup. By the way, today's meetup is not going to be on that Gather Round platform. We're going to use Toucan. I'll explain that later, but you'll see the link to do that at the very last 5 minutes of the video chat. All right. We have a special Monday night chat that is happening next Monday, Hacking the Insider Risk Summit, an hour of critical thinking about creating a security-aware culture. Guess what? The link to register for it is right there at the bottom of the screen. You can click on that at any time during this video chat. It will not take you out of this video chat, and you can just register for it and be in this the entire time. We will also have another video chat next Friday, Hacking Active Directory, an hour of critical thinking on securing the keys to the kingdom. That link at the bottom will change to that halfway through the show. So click on the first link. I should also mention that if you Register for this essentially before 5 p.m. today. You will be eligible to win one of those awesome CISO series fleeces. And also we're giving away also a Yeti cooler as well. Similarly, register for this one as well early, and you're also eligible for the raffle for the fleece. All right. And also I want to also mention that starting in 90 minutes, we will also be doing the Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review show that starts at 12:30 p.m. Pacific, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. All right, enough of that. Let's get to our topic at hand. Gentlemen, thank you for staying silent as I got through all that nonsense, as I also try to turn off the clock behind me as well. All right, here we go. My very first question. What is the core issue with alert fatigue? Is it a situation of we're scanning too much, we don't have good filters, we don't know what to assign? Cindy, where exactly is this line? Because, by the way, this is not a new problem. We've always had alert fatigue, and yet it sort of still keeps cropping up.
Yeah, it's all those problems, of course, but they're combined. When you combine them all, you get even more alerts, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, working with, this is what was interesting to me over the last 3 years, working with so many customers in cloud as they were moving to cloud. We would find you'd scan any given cloud and do a risk, and you would just end up with 10,000 problems, and it was overwhelming. And it, why was that? Well, some of it was you had a whole bunch of developers doing innovation, so they were doing interesting things, but it wasn't important data, so it didn't matter. You didn't need to set off alarms there. You had scenarios where people just didn't know what they were doing when they built it, which caused huge numbers of things. And then there was obviously, all of these cloud systems are very powerful, but also with that had lots of misconfigurations. So we just ended up with huge amounts of alert fatigue in this area. And so, why did we do that? Well, there were many different problems, of course. As you say, you're scanning too many things with the wrong types of scanners. You're having scenarios where you're sending them all to the SOC. So, poor Sean's team ends up with all these alerts that they didn't intend to get in the first place. And of course, there's no context around them. So you don't know, is this an innovation zone? Is it our most critical data? What is this? And so you had to stitch all that together to try to reduce that noise. And, there's ways to deal with it, of course. That's what we do every day. But in the initial scanning of let's just go scan it, again, I work in cloud, but same thing for enterprise. I want to scan the whole thing with this CIS benchmark. Okay, well, there's 10,000 problems. What are you going to do with that, right?
Yes. So I'm going to start with, then I say, you see 10,000 problems. What is your Sean, what is your first reaction when you see 10,000 problems?
We're clearly missing a couple 100,000 more. No, I like what Larry said. Correlation, obviously, and it's also the initial configuration. It's difficult because you're of two minds. One is only scan, the 1% of what you need until you can aggregate that, and then the 2%, and work your way up until you're at fully mature scanning and log aggregation and alerts and et cetera. Or just scan it all so you at least have a historical repository that you can go back to once you get your maturity. Then you can backwards look at what the historical pieces are. And so you're kind of in this, damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because if you do it, then they're overwhelmed with alert fatigue. And if you don't, then you don't have historical data to kind of bounce off trends when you do get to that maturity. So for me, when I'm seeing that 10,000 findings or whatever it is, immediately start correlation. But it's also, which of these do I care about, first, and start chunking them out. Maybe it's only the first 1,000 I care about after the correlation, obviously.
Is there, by the way, people are throwing in bad ideas that are playing silly games with these. Is there, I'm going to just throw this a field right away. Is there any way to kind of gamify dealing with alerts to make it a little bit more entertaining, more fun? Just throwing that out. Sandy, Sean, have you done anything like that?
You're talking about like Dutch's idea of using Atari stick?
The Atari situation.
Well, I saw that, yeah.
That's not a bad idea at all.
I like it.
It's interesting, actually. I think, and this is where, again, Sean said this great kind of concept of maturity, right? So, every workload probably needs a different level of maturity. If it's hey, this is public data and we're just putting it out on the public internet, well, you don't need to be a very high level of maturity to secure that. Where if it's, your most sensitive data, then you need a very high level, zero trust type level of security or something crazy if you want to use a buzzword. But fundamentally, to gamify that, if you can have each team kind of have a score and, there's some great reward for being the one that's, they don't need to be at the highest level of maturity, but they're getting their stuff progressed to a higher level. I think, yeah, actually people will gravitate towards that as long as what you're doing is not completely blocking them from doing the innovative stuff that they need to do in the first place. So.
Is there, and this was a question I asked on Twitter a little while ago, like what outside of nothing happening, because you constantly say when nothing happens, security is doing a great job, but is there another way to prove that you're doing a good job outside of nothing happening? And it could something about like how you're dealing with alerts, like showing how you're dealing, because just showing volumes like, oh, we had X number of alerts, we dealt with it, but you want to be more risk based. And again, like we were talking about beforehand, is that I think you said, what was it, I don't know where they got the number, but 23% of alerts are the only thing that matters, like 77% of them are useless.
Yeah, that was a study I think Security Scorecard had on their blog that they pulled from Cloud Security Alliance. But that goes back to the first, where I said you have two options. It's about tuning your scanning and your alerts from the beginning. You're tuning out that 70% that's not applicable, but again, those alerts are still applicable somewhere. And I think that's what Sandy hit on a little bit ago, is send all the alerts to the SOC. Like, well, the SIM, which we know that the S means security, doesn't mean all alerts go there. It means that all alerts need to get collected, or logs need to be collected. And I think we've gotten a lot better now, where some people are using like a Datadog or some other company that's given log data for operational concerns. And then you have security concerns, and those sometimes get conflated. Either they need to be together or they need to be separated, and then you have a gap because you don't know who's not responding to what. And so I think it's one of those things where you have to figure out, you got to go through all alert. There are alerts for a reason, or you should turn them off. Like if this alert doesn't mean anything, turn it off. But if it does, who is the responsible party to respond to it? Is it a security piece or ops?
Could you just, so it like makes a little more sense in my head, boil down a case of an alert you turned off because it didn't make sense, and one that you keep on because it does make sense?
Me actually doing work. That was a long time ago. But again, it's just, so I might turn off an alert for a security reason, like and then there's, I don't know, there's so many, because you think like high memory use. Well, that could be a security alert, but it's definitely an operational alert. And so that might be one where you have to find that balance on. But I think it's one of those things, like there's just certain alerts that are maybe out of the box, just don't apply to your environment. I really can't think of a specific one right now that I wouldn't want to investigate.
Well, I will throw out it to the audience as well. Yeah, By the way, I just want to point out Dutch Schwartz's horrible idea that came in, that was inspired by, it looks like Clockwork Orange, about putting IVs in people's eyes and taping their eyeballs open so they have to stare at an 8-bit screen which flows alerts 24/7.
8-bit.
By the way, I think the only part that's bad about that is the 8-bit. I mean, no reason to keep it low resolution. Otherwise, everything else about that sounds good.
Caffeine in the IV and you're good to go. I actually think, Sean, it's interesting you say, what would you turn off? I always use the example of, your whatever, pick your resource, whatever, S3 bucket or storage account is unencrypted, right? That's an alert you typically would want to know. If it's your most sensitive data, you'd want to know that. But actually, if it's just your developer experimenting for the first time with some analytics workload that they've never used with no data in it, who freaking cares, right? That it's unencrypted, there's nothing in it. And that's probably a good example of one where like you've just got, yes, in some scenarios it's crazy important, but in other areas it's meaningless, right? You would never respond to it. And on the risk side, I find there's a lot of those that you can actually make those decisions on. It's harder on the threat side, I will say. Yeah. On the risk side, you can do it. But
do SOC teams though get a little hamstring of the fear of, well, if I start filtering stuff out, even if I'm filtering out 70%, I am going to get 1% of that 23% that is critical that I need to know in my filtering process. I got to assume that that's in everyone's sort of back of mind. And so like, well, it's better to have too much than too little, or are we not at that point?
So I think there's a difference between logging and alerting.
Okay.
you should log everything, because
Right.
at minimum that's a forensics look back.
Correct.
After, and right of boom, right, when you need to go back and look to the left of boom forensically. And then the alerts piece on it, you would turn on the alerts based off of what you're tracking. And sometimes you might not have alerts on something, but your threat intelligence is telling you, hey, this is something you should probably start looking at. And now you turn that alert on, and it may theoretically be for a period of time, but might not be. Like, especially if you're thinking, real world, you talk about like weather and things like that. Hurricane season, really not a problem in January or February. So those types of alerts, using a real world example, those types of alerts, when it be applicable, you turn that off. And so you think through those things in a scenario. If you're a company that's supporting, events that are seasonal or annual, like Super Bowl events and things like that, you just have different alerts based off of your interactions. Like, are you doing a public speaking event? You might want to have certain alerts on during that time that you're not. So
I just want to remind people that we are 5 minutes away from putting up the poll for the best bad ideas. So you have 5 more minutes to do that. Secondly, you can give us your unique ideas too on dealing with the alerts. Just put unique or best idea in as well. And don't forget to click on the button below to register for Monday. It's a Monday evening. It's going to be starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. And that'll be a lot of fun. The Hacking the Insider Risk Summit. And that is going to disappear in about 10 minutes. So click on it now. And again, if you click on it early, you'll be registered for the raffle as well. All right, gentlemen, we don't have any questions yet. What is wrong with you people? Get the darn questions
I'm
in.
reading the text, though. They're talking
There's
about
plenty of
symphony of efficiencies and yeah.
Okay. Don't worry, I have plenty of questions for you. Okay.
I have to highlight all of the text and save it for my next board briefing.
Okay, so there is the trying to cut down that 70% that is essentially useless, wasting everybody's time. What is the difference between the security is dealing with alerts and the DevOps team is dealing with alerts, Sandy?
Look, this is one of the lessons learned as you go into this new world of agile, right? If you haven't, in our old world, we had a network team, we had, an identity team, and we had a data security team. And when you got your app ready to go, the app team built it, and they said, hey, network team, go poke me a hole in the firewall. And the network team did that. And, that's how it was built. And now you have this single kind of agile team that builds the entire application end to end with code, deploys the whole thing into a cloud account where they can do everything that they want to do in terms of networks and data stores and all these things. And it's all kind of run by this one team. And they do it in 2-week sprints as they do it and continually evolve it. And so now you have a scenario where, there isn't the concept of, okay, well, the network team monitors the firewalls and the flows, and, the data team does the identity governance. You have this one team that's responsible for it all. But when they have that responsibility now, I think there are a certain class of alerts or risks that have to be solved by that team because they're the only team that has the context to fix them. And also probably the only team that can argue with Sean as to why whatever the alert that's going off is not important, because maybe it's an encryption issue on something that's already public data, as an example. But they are the only people that know that. You don't see it at the SOC level, and you can't tell that. And so I actually think one of the great things about this new modern world is that if you can get those issues back to those teams in their development cycle so that they see them, they don't have to fix them right away in the development cycle. You can let them play and innovate and do the things they need to do. But when they get to that point that they're running the pipeline and doing the end-to-end tests before it's promoted to prod, they got to clear them. They have to be clear. And when they're clear, then they can promote the code. And if you do that, you can start to send all of these alarms back to those teams and hopefully put those kind of blockers and guardrails in so that they can never promote the code into runtime unless it's got that clean security state. And it's a great way to do it. There's still going to be issues in runtime. Some of those should go to that team as well. They should be aware, they have the context, but some of that stuff in runtime, of course, has to go to the SOC or wherever it is if it's threat related. So.
All right, a couple of good questions already in right now. I'll start with you, Sean, on this. This comes from Roger Swanson. Do you have a process or a checklist for configuring SIM or SOAR systems?
I think I got to this place in my career because I had skills. No, I don't have a checklist. No.
By the way, you are not endearing any confidence with our audience. Every response has been, I don't do that. I don't work.
I am the epitome of imposter CISO. No. Yeah, yes and no. So when I was in the government, we did something. We did a CSSP, cybersecurity service provider. They originally did like a maturity test, and now they do it was still somewhat maturity, but they graded the entire SOC capability, and it was mapped to the NIST framework. But there's like 180 different steps that you would go through and analyze. And so I kind of use that same framework. I have it. I don't think it's publicly shared, but I've used other things, from CSA and Cloud Security Alliance's Matrix, as well as some, secure control framework. What I end up doing is I take out the things that are tied. A lot of people just remember the top five, the five functions of the cybersecurity framework. But if you really understand and then spend time learning it, you can see the threads of like how vulnerability management is not one box. It's 9 boxes, starting from asset inventory to the PR piece, PRIP 12 specifically, and then DEAE 5. And you kind of walk that line. And so you go into those alerts that are in there, and then you look at the controls that are tied to that. And since everyone's mapped to the NIST framework, for the most part, you can take any, from cloud or any other tools, and you can go into the detect piece, specifically DEAE, which is the alert piece. And you can start to build out per system, whether it's AWS or Azure or Microsoft endpoints or Mac endpoints. They all have those kind of mapped out, and those are alerts that I start feeding through. But the checklist, I don't have a set checklist for it specifically. I don't know how you would really have a checklist shorter than using the framework and other frameworks that are applicable to your environment.
Checklist. By the way, I want to point out one of Dutch's bad ideas. For every alert deemed critical by a vendor found not to be critical, fine the vendor $25,000. Dutch, I think that's actually a unique idea and a great idea.
The irony is
literally
the vendor he works
bad
for.
With that.
The vendor he works for is not that critical, so I can see this going well.
What do you think, Sandy?
Hey, look, it's it's always the vendor not finding it critical. Of course, it's not critical.
So let me jump to the next question here that we have. There's actually a few more good ones. To what level do alerts leave the SOC and go up higher? Like, at what point does that happen? And should it happen seldom to never, Sandy?
No, there are certain class of alerts. There absolutely should be playbooks.
Right.
Quickly.
If you're a play, like if it's like, oh no, we've got an active scenario type here, like that. Yes,
absolutely. So all of those ones, again, there should be a very defined path for exactly how you're going to execute and escalate them through the ranks to the point that it gets to the CEO when it needs to get there. They all should have lice messages as to what they're going to say to the press when they get the call, because it's going to happen.
By the way, Greg Bales, he's the one who sent this question, is should you limit sending any alerts to the CISO and trust the analyst engineers to rip the higher priority issues, or should they get high priority alerts? I mean, I think it's when it becomes a scenario. Yes,
that's it. The actual alert itself would never go to anyone higher. There's got to be an analyst that does that triage or whatever it is. But through automation, you may be pretty sure, even through the automation, that this is an incident. It's going to be escalated pretty quickly. If you end up with a bunch of crypto miners running in one of your sensitive accounts, that's probably something you're going to escalate in a hurry. Those types of things, right? So we know that, and those go up. But there's always somebody that probably touches that first instance before it actually emails the CEO or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
So before Sean gets woken up in the middle of the night, somebody should look at it first.
So
when's the last time you were woken up in the middle of the night because of an alert, Sean?
Oh, other than my baby. I'll say that's regular. Different alert fatigue. I don't think the last time I recall a significant incident was 2 years ago at my previous company, and it ended up people didn't understand what the alert was and or what the incident really was, and they called me on a weekend. Let me explain that to you. Stop calling me. But yeah, I really don't have too many of those. But I think that goes to the playbook, and I think so. I'll give you a couple tips on. I'll post them in the chat. Hopefully, I get it by the time I say it. but like DoD has CJCSI 6510. I know I just said that really quickly, but if you type in 6510 alerts, you should find a 1 through 9 list where they've categorized lists. Is this root level access? Is this exercise being investigated? Things like that. And so we use that as everything kind of went to one of those, and then we had a playbook of upward notification based off of that. So a level 1 alert or tier 1 alert, that was like you notified everyone you needed to know as soon as that was confirmed. And so those are one reference. And another fun one for people, if you want to see alert fatigue, it just got released publicly. It wasn't classified, it was FOIO, but it was released publicly, is ICS 528 Appendix B. That was the alerting that we had to implement in 2011 in the intelligence community. It alerted literally everything, whether you accessed a file, if it was approved, if it was denied. I mean, the amount of alerting we had, I'll post a list on this, but I know a DoD acronym, I'll give it to you, ICS, Intelligence Community Standard. And so I'll post these links for everyone. I see people chatting on them. But the amount of alerts that you see that we had to fatigue, it broke almost all of our agency's logging. Like we couldn't do it. So we had to pick and choose which one of these alerts did we want to work on. But we had a mandate that you had to collect them all. And it was just, we couldn't keep up with it. And so it's one of those things, like you got to be careful signing up for, yes, it's good to have all that, but you need to balance your risk, which goes back to, turning off the alerts is, do we need to log every single time a person accesses a file? Well, in the intelligence community, maybe. In my company, maybe not. Find that right balance. And then is it all files or certain files?
It's always certain files, right? It's again, that's one of those key things on, if you can figure out what those workloads are and what data's in them, you can start to make those decisions, right? It's actually, that's one of the things in cloud, Sean, that drives me nuts sometimes, is that I think half the people think all this stuff is logged and you have to initially turn it on, right? And it's we find so many scenarios, it's like, very sensitive data. You're not even logging access to it. But then in sandboxes, somebody has logging on. You're like, why is that? They don't need it.
All right, let me just remind everybody, Andrew, just leave that link at the bottom of the screen for 60 seconds more. Please click on it, everyone, because we're going to change it to next week. This is for the video chat for next Monday. We are going to have our poll. Our poll is up, by the way. If you have not voted, you got 3 more minutes to vote on your favorite bad idea. Please vote on the favorite bad idea as well, and click on the link at the bottom. Just a few more seconds, and then Andrew will turn it over to next Friday's video chat, which we want you to register for as well. All right, we are just a couple of minutes away, so we're gonna go with this question before we go to our game. This comes from Stephen Garrison. Is this new idea of XDR the holy grail to correlated alerts? Because as I understand, XDR is essentially a cloud-based version of EDR, trying to bring everything in and to give some context to the alerts, essentially to tell a story. Stephen goes on by saying, thereby reducing noise and showing context across tools and feeds, just what I said. Gartner and Forrester are promoting the idea, as well as over 40 vendors as well. I will start with you. Sandy, what do you think? Is XDR a holy grail or not?
XDR is an evolution of something we've been building for 20 years. Again, if you look at this entire, life cycle of, we could start at basic log management and alerts and SIM and then SOAR and then, all through this entire thing. How many times has Gartner said, whatever, SIM is dead, long live SIM in the next sentence? Of course, the holy grail is bring everything together, correlate everything, right, get the highest quality alert you can, do automated action on it, don't involve an analyst. Absolutely. But it's an evolution. It's not a replacement. It's not a whatever. This is just this space evolving itself over and over and over again, which it has to do. It's not going to go away. We'll be talking about it 10 years from now with a different acronym.
All right, well, I'm waiting for the new acronym. Okay, XDR, is it something you're excited about, or it's, we've been building towards this for a while. I've been building a program like this. It's all been inevitable. What do you say, Sean?
I think it's an evolution of the security program. I mean, we have to have a buzzword for the marketing salespeople. All offense directed towards those that are in sales and marketing. But I mean, it's necessary because you need to separate it from the previous definitions, right? You know, EDR or whatever previous versions it were, because it is an evolutionary difference to what we previously had. So it does deserve its own name. But I don't think we're going to replace it in 2 to 3 years with something better, you know, especially as we go away from distributed, systems where we start to have more, especially more people go cloud than are cloud native. That's going to change a lot of the way we protect the environments. And we talk about endpoint devices. I see us changing that in the future. You know, we're not going to have, people running around with computers and operating systems on their host systems. If you look at the major players, whether it's Google, AWS, or Azure, they all have their desktop environments in virtual, and then obviously there's the virtual competitors. And so I think the more we go into that way, we're going to get away from the endpoint or the detection at that side. So that's where XDR is getting us. That's the bridge to that future.
All right, we got a call. Just came in. Whoops, that's not the one.
It's time to play Beat the...
Whoops, that's the number. Here we go.
Hello, welcome to the Department of Yes, where no request is ever rejected.
All right. I accidentally hit the thing for the other game. So this is what we're going to play. It's called Department of Yes. You have to say yes to these horrible ideas. And you can't be facetious. And I will tell you, some really horrible ones came in. I will say that I'm going back to Dutch. Dutch, we missed Dutch for quite some time, who was really the champion of the bad ideas, loaded with them. And I think Dutch really came out swinging this time. A lot of his weren't voted on because a lot were here. It's hard to read through them. But absurdly violent, some of Dutch's ones. It caused a lot of damage. But speak up. I know which some of the ones were done, but speak up if this is your bad idea. And I'm going to throw this to you, Sean, since you've played before. Again, I am the judge and the jury on this bad idea. This one comes up, again, speak up if it's you. Have your boss CC'd on all of the alerts that you receive. That way they will know how busy you are. Why is this a good idea?
I think this is a great idea. The one problem with it is your boss is not the final stop. You need to get the finance department involved because they're going to pay to reduce these alerts. You need legal involved so that they're already read in and we don't have any incidents on it. And of course, you should obviously be broadcasting this to the board so they see what all the good work you're doing. Don't ever follow up with the fact that you closed it or not, but just show how much work you're really doing. And then when you're asked for any, whether it's a budget increase or a team member resource increase, you're most likely going to get this approved.
Fred Grun, this is his bad idea. All right. Now, you just say that spreading it around, let everyone knowing about it, just lets people know. It's sort of agreeing with Fred that know how busy you are. By the way, here we go. We're going to give you a slight. Yes! I think you could have done a little stronger than that, Sean. Sandy, can you one-up him on this, of why this is a good idea?
This is a good idea because actually you don't have to do any of the work anymore because now all of the other people know about the problems. And of course, as we know, everybody, when they get an email that's CC'd to all of the teams, legal, whatever, that they know it's not their responsibility anymore. So it's been moved on and they just don't have to do anything. It's actually no more alert fatigue at all, actually.
So you see it as a shifting of responsibilities by CCing.
Spectacular. Yes, absolutely.
See?
Transference.
I like that. I like that better. All right. Now, the second one, I do know who did this because we referenced it before, but it got voted up very well. All right. From Dutch, build a Star Wars sock room. I'm just giving this to you, Sandy. Give your analysts an Atari stick controller. So you remember the classic one with just a single button on it. And they have to shoot down alerts to survive. I don't think this is a bad idea at all. It sounds, this goes back
like
to
the best recruiting thing you could ever do in your SOC. You will have more applications for analysts than you have ever had before. I think this is brilliant.
Yeah, this goes back to my comment, like, how do we make this fun? Turn it into a video game. What would you rather do? Shoot down alerts or actually deal with alerts? Sean?
I think this is a great idea, particularly if we could turn this into a business, because when the user actually successfully clicks down the alert, that would be like an automated response back to it, because you can't just shoot down the alert. That's just deleting it. So that shooting down action would actually be a predefined response action, and now we're actually producing responses to the alerts, not just deleting them. So I think it's a
terminate the employee involved. That would be
well, there you go. Yeah, whoever the cause of the alert, just remove them from the problem. Yeah.
All right. Well, at one point I thought this was going well.
Oh yeah!
But then I didn't feel.
You would have everyone on the alert team, though. They wouldn't be making any problems.
I don't know if we should be firing people. I
didn't say. I just said remove them from the path. Yeah.
Remove them from the path.
That's HR's problem, how they deal with it.
You remove them from the path, and then they're just kind of floating at the company?
Yeah, that's
All right. All right. I want to get to a quick question that, by the way, if you have not gotten your good ideas in, please get your good ideas in. And in just a few minutes, actually in 5 minutes, Andrew, please put up the good idea poll for that matter. I really like this question from Phil Wolf. And he asks, how many incidents and we only have one good idea. So we have all these people online and only one of you has a good idea. That is pathetic.
You see the problem now.
There you go. There you go. How many incidents? This is from Phil. And by the way, I wonder if you've actually calculated this number, because this is a really interesting question. How many incidents can humans and teams deal with per hour and day? And what in human psychology does gaming get right and incident management systems get wrong? So kind of definitely a two-part question with two answers. I'll start with you, Sean, on this one. How many incidents a day can a human handle? And I know that varies. Some incidents are bigger than others, but what's a low to high?
Yeah, so it's interesting. When I read it and listened to you say it, there's two studies that come to mind, and I could not tell you the sources or like how to actually find them. One of them was the Marine Corps with people standing watch, fire watch, or doing perimeter watch. I remember the calculation, something is several years ago, but they can only stay in one post for about 2 hours before they either start seeing things that aren't there, or they become so familiar with the terrain that they overlook things because they're not paying attention. So that I don't know how that would translate to this. But
it would translate like you got to shift the view.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so the other half of that was another study that I remember was done in a college a few years back, where they took an employee and they gave them, or took a participant and they gave like a list of Legos. Assemble these Legos, we'll give you $5. Assemble they took them apart right in front of the person, said reassemble them, we'll give you $5. And they only, I think the average was like 6 times before they said, we're done with this. It's not worth the money. But then they took a different group and they gave them a set of Legos, gave them $5, and then gave them a different set of Legos, gave them $5. And they kept giving them different sets each time. And those people did something like 18 or 20 attempts because it was different. And so while I don't know what the number of alerts is, based off of those two studies in my head, my concern is seeing the same alerts or seeing the same thing all day. And so I would look at shifting the people from, what alert, monitoring for a certain period of time and then giving them a different task. So I don't know, and obviously based off those, I'm going to go with 2 hours, but I don't have any actual what numbers that would be from computer standpoint. Those are just two separate studies that I think play into the psychology piece.
No, but I think that's a really good point. The whole issue of variety, the need for variety in a SOC and dealing with alerts. I mean, that is the core of the alert fatigue. Sandy, I mean, have you seen this?
No, for sure. Again, I think the 2 hours is about the right number. It's kind of interesting. We always try to encourage people like, okay, you get an alert, you chase it down, it takes you the 2.5 hours, and you discover something. It's a false positive because it's a different event type or whatever we were talking about in the Windows world. It's really important that feedback goes back into the system, whatever SIM, SOAR, whatever you're using, so that pattern doesn't happen again. Because again, to Sean's point, if you see that same alert over and over and over again, you get numb to it. You just don't want to deal with it anymore. You already know what it is. And so you immediately dismiss it when it even somewhat looks the same. Right? I've seen that. It's always a false positive. You see it in operations too, not even just in security, if it's the same way. And so we have to have that cycle back. And I think that's actually where really large companies sometimes struggle, because they have such ingrained process and so many committees for what policies have to be tuned how, that that you get this massive alert fatigue from people just having to click on the same stupid false positive over and over and over again before they ever get it tuned back out of their systems, right? So it's critical. But I like the 2-hour thing. I think that's about the right number. But it's a bit of a guess from 20 years of looking at SOCs, but
yeah, and your comment is spot on. Oh, that's always a false positive. Like if I hear someone say that, man, we're not allowed to hit people with tennis rackets nowadays. But like that's like, come on, man. We need don't have that. If you have that complacent attitude, like complacency kills. I mean, that's a phrase for a reason. And unfortunately, in cyber, maybe not death, but it might not be a fun weekend if you have that complacency.
By the way, Bryn has said that your beard has gone to a magnificent length, which you said you had the 12th best beard. I don't see how that's so far down to number 12. I don't understand that. By the way, Dutch and Fred have been invited. We are here. Dutch is trying to figure out his camera.
Trying to put his hat on.
No, wait. His video just disappeared. Dutch and Fred are there, but their videos are not there. Why are Dutch and Fred's?
I don't know.
Refresh your screen, Dutch and Fred. That will hopefully bring yourselves back. But I don't know why their videos are not showing up. Why are they not? No, one of them, Fred, just disappeared. Oh, no, they're refreshing right now. Hopefully that'll solve the problem, and they'll be back. They're just little icons. Any idea, Andrew, the producer, why that's happening? We have a back channel discussion going on. Only 12th. No clue why this is happening, Andrew. All right. Are they coming? Why are they not? You know what? Drop them and invite. Oh, no, here's Dutch, and he's somewhat blocked by something. Here. There he is. All right. There's Dutch. We got Dutch on. Dutch, by the way, had a slew of bad ideas that came in. I actually thought some of your other ones were far worse that came in than the because honestly, I thought
that's
this
okay, though,
Star
because
Wars
then you
one
can use them for later, right?
Yeah, they're pretty good. We'll get Fred. Hopefully, will jump on in a second. But Dutch, you have the Star Wars, and the whole point of this right now is you have to argue why your idea is truly the worst. Fred is on, but shows no video. I don't. Oh yeah, Fred. One. Drop Fred and then invite him again. Drop Fred and see. Invite him again. See if he comes back on. So you have to, Sandy and Sean, you have to determine which is the worst. It's like the what's worse game. Worse purely from a risk standpoint as well. And there goes Fred again in his. He's not coming on video. He's come on before. Anyways, Dutch, argue why yours is the worst right now. Why is yours the worst? And worse than Fred's was send the alerts to everybody. And you're making it a video game. Which one's worse?
Yeah, I think sending the alerts to everybody is actually wonderful, because think of the inclusivity that everybody feels out of that. The team building, the camaraderie, how everybody in the company will really be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe.
Okay, let me pause you right there. When have you been CC'd on something and felt camaraderie? I want to just focus on that.
I know when it happens. It doesn't happen on the first CC. It doesn't happen on the first CC. It happens on the reply all. That's when it happens.
Right. It's reply all. You're like, yes, company picnic, and it's mandatory. Forced fun. I love forced fun. We all know about that in the military. That's the best. So what was implied in my asteroids comment is we didn't say, but obviously if they don't shoot them down, it kills them. That's a real high stakes.
So it is a high stakes. We didn't realize. We just thought it was turning into a game. So this is more of a threat type thing, an Ender's Game type thing that's
Absolutely.
happening. And they gotta play. And unfortunately, we cannot get. I'm gonna have to speak for you, Fred. We cannot get him on camera. I don't know what's going on.
He said he's being overloaded with alerts.
He's being overloaded with alerts. Well, Fred's. So now that we understand Dutch is more, that there is, again, the more violent streak, as did all his bad ideas, have some kind of, you could lose your life or get maimed in some way or suffer some
or end up working
scenario.
With Dutch.
There's that scenario, or the just flooding with emails across the company. Purely from a risk basis, which one do you think is worse, Sean?
From a risk basis? Ooh,
will cause more damage to the company.
Yeah, if his game is involving I guess I would say deleting the alerts from the game piece, because you're just ignoring them. I'm still torn because if you really start forwarding them out to everyone, you could get a lot of people quitting or just ignoring email. Now no work gets done. But I would say deleting them is worse because
So you
just
think
might as well.
Dutch is worse?
Yeah.
Sandy, which one do you think is worse? Again, what's going to cause the more damage to the company?
Look, I half think Dutch's idea is awesome. So whatever. I got to go the other one's worse because Dutch's is awesome. Yeah, if we maim a few analysts because they forgot to click the button, well, you know.
Well, I want to just say that the employees at Sunry, I don't know how they'd feel about that.
I'm actually thinking about implementing this. This seems awesome.
I believe that
You know
Melissa
your
and
audience,
James are
David.
on right
You know your
now.
audience.
Exactly.
I think they're trying to build force fields of wherever they are right now. So this will not affect them. All right, Dutch, thank you so for coming back, joining us again, and all your awesome bad ideas. We love every single one of them.
Guys.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry that Fred couldn't come on. I don't know what was happening there, but that was really, really bizarre. Anyways, Cindy, I wanted to, though, just take a pause. The Sunry Security has sponsored the event. I'm not grokking it fully. I want you to have a moment to be able to tell the story right now. How is Sunry Security dealing with the alert fatigue issue?
Look, and again, you have to qualify this with a lot of the stuff we do is risk based, not threat based, right? We do some threat stuff, but a lot of it is risk based, and so we spend actually a lot of time with our customers making sure that we organize their cloud into, we call them swim lanes, but you can just think of them as workload definitions, right? It's an application that a team is building. It has different environments. It has a development environment. It has some sort of a staging environment. It has a production environment. And then every one of those apps has different levels of sensitivity to it. You know, we some of it will have very sensitive data, and some of it will have it's just public data that we're just redisplaying in a different spot, in which case, it's not that important. And by monitoring, those applications by their environments, so is this the development environment or the production environment, and what type of data it is, we actually can completely customize the exact types of risks we're finding based on that. And so, I always use the example, if it's a Sandbox Innovation account, assuming that you don't have unauthenticated resources completely publicly exposed, there's not a lot else to worry about. But if you have a scenario where, it's the most sensitive data in the whole company, and if that goes out the door, you lose the company, then yeah, you've got to get every resource to least privilege. You've got to make sure every piece of data is encrypted and it's got 3 keys on it to open it, and you have to do all those things. And so by doing that, you really customize which alert. It's kind of like the pre-context correlation before the alarm gets generated. But it doesn't mean you don't audit it all, right? You still collect all the logs, you still collect the configurations, you know what those are. Because when the incident responder is trying to clean up the mess later, they need the audit data from that stuff, right? So anyway, that's what we do. We spend a huge amount of time doing that. Obviously, we do it all in cloud for AWS, Azure, and GCP, which is usually where most of these agile teams are building these applications. So we focus there.
Awesome. I want to remind everybody that the link to register for next Friday's video chat, remember I mentioned there was a Monday one, but now we have the Friday video chat for Hacking Active Directory. Please register for that. Again, click the link. You will not be taken out of this video chat at all. And stick around for our meetup at the end. We're going to be using the Toucan platform, which is more of a party atmosphere where you sort of, you kind of join conversations, leave conversations, and bounce around. So you will have fun with that. So please stick around for our meetup portion at the very tail end. We only have 12 minutes left in our chat. And let me go back to one of my questions here. What do you do in terms of spoon feeding alerts, Sean? And does that not exist?
Yeah, I don't know what size spoon you're talking about. I think this goes back to that maturation that we were talking about earlier. There's a couple strategies I could think of off the top of my head. One of them would be, focusing team members or analysts on particular environments or even business lanes specifically, so that they can build that up, and so they're not getting inundated with the totality of the alerts. I know you definitely want the T-shaped individuals, right, really deep in their expertise with a cross-cutting capability at the top, where they're not as deep, and so I think you can kind of use that same T-shaped skill set framework on your analysts, where they're specialized in their environment. So they're they're using a spoon, but they're only pulling from a bowl of their alerts that are applicable to them. Because I think that's where a lot of the problem is. You get 10 analysts and you're like, all right, you 10 sit on the floor and watch the alerts come in, and they all have the same windows open, and then they all have the same alerts come in, and they go, oh, I got this one and I got that one, rather than like, let's pre-bucket and pre-categorize them. So I think that would be one way I'd go about it, but that also depends on your team. The makeup of your team, how big is it? Is it hybrid, all internal with some external? Do you have an MDR that's kind of monitoring some of your alerts for you? Do you have an MSSP? So there's a balance in all of that of trying to figure out, because even when you have an MDR and MSSP, which alerts are they responding to and quarantining and reacting to, and which ones are we? And then when you introduce the other problem of DevOps, that's an internal piece, DevSecOps, right? That's an internal set of alerts, and now you at least tie those to the user stories and what alerts are tied to their development cycle. And it's a little bit easier, I think, to quote unquote spoon feed them from there. Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Oh, by the way, we have the poll up for the good ideas. Just a handful of them, but we have this one that's been voted up the best. And again, speak up if this is you. Leverage AI machine learning to correlate multiple sources of data to find real events that should be investigated. I think this is isn't this what kind of XDR was kind of heading towards? Yes. Sean, Sandy, you're nodding your heads. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's the idea of it.
I mean,
that's also the idea of the SIM. That's also the idea of, a lot of this stuff is that correlation, automated correlation. Go ahead, Sandy.
Now, what do you think of this? No one voted for this one. But I want to know if financial incentives around dealing with alerts is a good idea or a bad idea. Someone posted $1 for each alert closed within 24 hours, minus $2 for each closed alert reopened within 1 week. Is that a bad or a good idea?
I think it's a terrible idea.
I think keeping employment, I could see it being a terrible idea, because once I got enough money, like, all right, I'm done for the week. I have enough to pay for my partying. But at the same point, like the idea of doing, like the Uber of alerts, if you open this up to gig workers, now we have a different deal. And it's kind of like, hey, we got all these alerts, anybody willing to do it. Now you could potentially be opening up your analyst base to hundreds or thousands of people just closing alerts, like a bug bounty.
We do have models of that.
Yeah, it's a bug bounty for alerts.
Right, but there are models for looking at stuff on the internet and telling me, is this inappropriate content or appropriate content? Yeah. And those kind of communities do exist. Can that be possible with a company's sort of SOC, and like you're anonymizing, like you don't know what company's coming from, or something? Like again, we're trying to be creative, out of the box thinking. Could any of that work ever, Sandy?
I can't believe that, whatever my Amazon Turk version of is this a real incident or not working very well. I've seen a lot of really good analysts struggle from time to time to understand if something's real or not. I don't know if we're going to want to kind of roll this thing out or not. And they have no context. The whole thing about security in the SOC is without the context, I don't know how you would ever decide if this stuff is key. So I don't think so, but it's. Yeah,
I don't see how you would. I think the idea is great on paper, but to Sane's point, like you have an alert on your Active Directory, server. If you're not already in the cloud doing identity, how do you give access to the AD to some random, gig worker to go? Yeah, no, that's a valid alert. You should close it. Holy crap!
All right. So the idea is shut down. All right. Hang with me. We need to wrap this up. I'm going to do just a few closing things, and then I want to hear your final thoughts on this. All right. Hold on. Here we go. All right. I said earlier it's starting in 90 minutes. It's actually starting in 90 minutes from now will be our Cybersecurity Headlines Week in Review show, which, by the way, Sean has been a guest on multiple times as well. It's a really fun show. It's just 25 minutes long. You just get the 8 most important stories, but plus some context from a security professional as to what the heck does this mean. And you can change the link at the bottom of the screen, by the way, to our meetup. Please stick around for our meetup. You can go ahead, click that link at the bottom whenever that changes. By the way, you can click the link now if you haven't registered for the Hacking Active Directory as well. But when Andrew changes that over for our meetup, again, we're going to be using a different platform. It is not going to be the gather round / icebreaker model you used before. There it is. Now that's like, you can click on it now. It's totally fun. In fact, I'm going to click on it as we speak. And it will be starting in just a few moments for that matter. Lastly, I want to mention, going here. Tell your friends to join us. It's every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. And a huge thanks to Sandy's company, Sunry Security. If you type that into your browser, you will find them. And if you want to sponsor a video chat, we have, I think, only 4 left in 2021 for sponsorship. Just email me at david@cisoseries.com. And this event is over. Oh, that is the wrong link. Andrew, you have the wrong link, I think. Actually, let me put the correct link. I'm going to put that. I think you have the wrong link there. Oh, no. This is demo. Hold on. My apologies. I think we have the wrong link for the meetup portion, and I want to get this correct. And that is not the. Oh, well, you know what? It's going to say Hacking the Insider Risk Summit meetup. You know what? I got to create an event. I'm going to create an event right now, gentlemen. I'm going to ask you right now to give your closing comments on today's discussion. What your thoughts, what your suggestions are for hacking alert fatigue.
I'll go. I'll let you finish. So first, I think you all need to toughen up. Sandy and I were talking earlier about when we used to, back in our day, we used to have to hunt out alerts and just to find them. But no, in seriousness, I think it's something serious. I think we get lost with, particularly the SOCs being overwhelmed because very few SOCs are adequately staffed, either between tooling or people. And so it's something that you're going to forget about and kind of just not look at because it is a refining exercise, but it's something that's critical. By refining the alerts and spending some time once every sprint or once every month, you figure out your pattern, but take a step back and take that opportunity to refine your processes. But in this case, refine the alerts and start to correlate them and look when 2 alerts are for the same thing, correlate them to 1. So you only get 1 alert. But understand that hierarchy of how the alerts work their way up to what level of criticality you need.
All right. By the way, my apologies for that delay. Again, I think I know what happened, but because you can only have 1 meetup scheduled at a time. But the link at the bottom works, and plus I clicked on the link. So go ahead. You can click on that now or click on it when this chat is over, whichever you would like, and join us for the meetup. Sandy, your thoughts with the last 2 minutes remaining into today's. And by the way, any plea for Sunry Security, please make it.
Hey, look, I think off of Sean's comments, if you can also, define those environments and distribute the work back to those new agile DevOps teams when there are risks that they need to solve, put the work in front of the developer path. If they work in Jira, get that ticket into Jira for them, and then spoon feed it. Don't send them all the alerts in the first week. If they have 1 sprint, send them 1 sprint's worth of alerts to fix, and that's it. And if you can do that, you can get them very proactive. So, and
give them the answer, because if developers have to look for the answer, they're not going to do it.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by the answer? Quickly, what do you mean?
Like if it says this port is open, tell them teach them how to close it. Not just say close the port, because they don't know what the heck that means. Yeah. Or they do, but they don't want to think they're developers.
I hope we don't have any developers on.
Oh, well, I looked quickly to see if any of my board was on here after I called out the board.
I want to thank both Sean Bowen, who is the CISO over at World Fuel Services, and also Sandy Bird, who's the CTO and co-founder over at Sunry Security. And I also want to thank our audience for being so awesome and entertaining. made this all entertaining. Please, everybody, join us. Click the link at the bottom. That is the Toucan. We're going to be all meeting up there. I'll be over there in just a second. And we're going to continue to have a conversation. This is going to be a more free-floating conversation, so have fun with it. We're looking forward. Try not to get into too big groups, because it's more fun. We're just groups of 2 or 3, and feel free to jump from one conversation to another. We'll do that for a half hour. Have fun with it. Andrew, take us out.